Nobody wants to come to you for your discussion on that topic and just get a tired, diluted, no heart. You've got to.
Hello, Intactivists. I am back with Melina. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you today?
I am doing fantastic. All right. So, last time we talked about people and them speaking out and stuff like that, and them being afraid of, voicing their opinions. But do you think that sometimes intactivists hurt the movement by focusing on different movements because they speak out too much or have too many different opinions? Like, for instance, speaking out about the LGBT rights and then mixing that with the values with intactivism, or mixing conservative with or other political values with intactivism, or even talking about men's rights and mixing that with intactivism. What do you think about doing stuff like that?
So I'm definitely jack of many trades kind of person myself, and I do dabble in many different things. So this is coming from a perspective of I do care about a lot of things, and so this applies to me too. So I will be calling myself out a little bit here. I I've learned that when we do many things at once, we really can't do that one thing, any one of those things as well as we could have done them. And I'm trying to reconcile this in my own life because there are so many different things that I am passionate about, that I do care about, that I want to make a difference in. And so I'm trying to find a way that it works for me that I can have that meaningful impact in each of those areas. And I think it's for me personally coming down to if you can't narrow your focus completely to one thing all the time, and you're going to have more than one thing that you're passionate about or that you're going to be involved in, I would say do it in turns. Don't do four different subjects in one day because you can't really go deep and really get into those other. I mean, maybe you can. For me personally, though, like I've been thinking about this podcast today, and I really want that to be what's on my mind, and I really want my thoughts to be focused there so that when it comes time, it's on my mind. I'm just kind of ready to flow and have all that. And if you can like have a whole day dedicated to it or something like that, where that is what your focus is. So if you haven't read the book, The One Thing, it's really valuable on this topic. And it really talks about focusing on one thing at a time and doing that just to your fullest and best capacity and then moving on to the next thing. So that is my personal kind of belief system around the idea. But that being said, that you, it's very much true that if you, in my opinion, that if you are just kind of all over the place, which one could say that I am, because I really do talk about everything, and like I said, I'm finding ways to make that work for me, but it can dilute any one topic sometimes from being, seen as the most important one. And so if you're going to do it, you've got to be kind of strategic about it, where so it's similar to branding. If you are going to be your own brand and if you're going to be a content creator or lead a movement or do a company or whatever, it's okay to have different things about yourself that are maybe not all exactly the same, but there has to be something common amongst them that is like keeps your brand all the way through. So for example, circumcision, you could say the LGBTQ, and you could say the men's rights. Those are all three different things, but they all do have something in common. And it's like the rights of the person, right? So you could theoretically go out and speak at all three engagements with your opinion that might be, on different subjects, but the commonality is still there, that the reason you're speaking up in each of those different areas is because you're speaking up for the voice of the person who maybe didn't have their rights recognized. So if you can do it that way, and if you can be, conscious of it and aware of the fact that you can appear scatterminded and you can appear as though you don't have any like goal or focus if you are just seen as all over the place. And that can make people not take you as if you're wanting to be recognized as an intactivist, people might not see you as that if they don't see you doing very much of that. So it also just depends on how much you want to be recognized as an intactivist. It's the same thing as like, are you full-time? Are you part-time? Do you dedicate 40 hours a week? I mean, if you think about that, 40 hours a week, how many people actually identify as a full-time intactivist? How many people are part-time? How many people are part-time? Because, maybe added up 10 hours in a week, they spend reading articles and sharing them or talking to people. And I think that's probably what most intactivists are, is just kind of in the lower end where they hold this belief. They won't personally continue the cycle. They will probably, or maybe not, say something to someone if they're close enough to them that's having a baby, and they might share an article, but that's kind of the extent of their intactivism. And so you might not even know that they're an intactivist because they're posting about homesteading, or they're posting about, race cars. And I think that's just kind of people, that's humans, that's just kind of showing ourselves and our lives and the diversity of them. So the word professional pops into my mind. If you want to be seen as a professional in a specific niche, that should be your focus. If you want to be seen as somebody that has multiple niches, I highly recommend that you have some sort of common branding amongst them that ties each one of those things to you. So if you're going to have, so to bring this back to intactivism, if you're going to have multiple things that you're passionate about or that you talk about or causes that you advocate for, it can be helpful if the reason that you are involved in each one of those things is something like that really relates back to you, that you can say, no, these things all do relate to me because this reason, and that's why you're there. And so you're not losing focus on all these different things because there is one common thing that you're working for. Like I said, maybe rights. So there's 5 different subjects. They're all fairly off topic from each other, but each one of them has that common thread. So I think it is important to present ourselves, at least if you are going for a professional thing, to present ourselves as what we represent, what our branding is, and keep within that. So, for example, myself, when I have a larger pivot in, I'm not going to say my personality, but like my viewpoint or a stance, particularly that I've had, and if it changes enough that I'm like, just to remain authentic to myself, I need to incorporate this into everything I've already built that is still my truth. However, this changes things a little bit. I need to bring this in, and so that it doesn't just look like I've, abandoned everything else that I stood for. Does it relate? Does it incorporate? Can you integrate everything? So I would say integrate, but also be able to focus completely on the one thing you're doing while you're doing it. I'm not going to be on my phone checking emails and wondering whether or not something sold over here while I'm focused on this right now, because right now I'm focused completely on this podcast, myself as an intactivist, the mission that I'm on to help educate parents and families, and who I am as a communicator and a life coach, and somebody that wants to help other people improve their lives through improving their communication, improving the efforts that they're making in life. And so I think it's really important that people just keep going, keep trying things, but as you learn who you are and as you discover what your beliefs are and what, you take a stance to become an intactivist. There was a time when you maybe didn't have that stance, and then your life changed and you took that pivot. That is life. That's the evolution of life. Things will come along, they'll pivot, you'll take other focuses on, but just always keep the core things that are the most important to you on the forefront enough and relatable so that you're not taking away from it. I've had sometimes when I have been advocating for something else, and an intactivist friend would come in and say, why do you care about this when this is happening over here? And I've been able to just sit back and think, I can be aware of what's happening over here and not be okay with it, and maybe have something I can do to maybe help it make it better, without that meaning that I don't care about this over here. So it's not like I'm involved with these other things, though, for some negative reason. Like, make sure you're staying with your brand. You're not all of a sudden doing something that contradicts to your brand, and not all of a sudden you're advocating something that just completely goes against human rights, right? That would devastate your brand. So stay with your values, stay clear about what those are, and make sure that that's the commonality amongst all the things that you're doing. And so that's what shines through. And if people pick up on that, they're like, oh, I'm going to listen to what this person's talking about. This is new. This is a little different maybe, but I'm going to listen because this person has already gained credibility from me in all these other areas where they showed me how it related to them. It was their brand. It was important to them. And this is why they're speaking up. And I can understand that. For example, I have many causes. I lost a partner to suicide. So that's something that I get involved with. Obviously, I'm an Intactivist for that reason, because that was something that personally impacted my family. So maybe I'm the wrong person to ask, but I'm not somebody that's going to shy away from all the colors of the rainbow if that's my authentic experience. But I have learned, like I said, I've had to find a way to make that more efficient and make that more calculated in my life. And so make an order of it, guys. Pick the things that are important to you, and then give each one of them the time that they deserve. If they don't matter enough to give it that time, then maybe you should let it go. But if it's something that it matters enough to you to keep it on your radar, give it all the right amount of attention. But when it's time to do one thing, focus on that one thing, because nobody wants to come to you for your discussion on that topic and just get a tired, diluted, no heart. You've got to keep your heart in everything you do. And then I think it's okay if you stand up for more than one thing, as long as you're never showing up half-assed for any of it. That's kind of how I feel. It's a work in progress. Full
Okay.
disclosure.
Hi, it's Scott, interrupting the interview for a moment to tell you about POTS's e-commerce program. To use it, you get the links from what you want to buy on Amazon or eBay. Then you send them to POTS through X or Discord in a direct message or on order ideas on Discord. And POTS will post them in the comments on a YouTube video or in an X post. Then you follow those links that are connected to POTS's Amazon or eBay store, and you buy those items, and POTS will get a percentage of that sale. This funds POTS's expenses to promote the channel and contract with other Intactivists. This does not cost you any extra money. All right, thank you, and back to the interview.
Okay, so it definitely sounds like you should compartmentalize whenever you're focusing on different movements. Is that pretty much what you're saying?
I mean, sometimes things connect and they can still intertwine, but my point is, yes, pretty much set the things aside and have the focus when it's time to focus. It's just like your kids. You want to make sure you're giving each one of them quality one-on-one time. I mean, if you want that, you know what I mean? So just be present, I guess, in what you're doing, and make sure you always bring your best to whatever you're doing. Even if 5 minutes later you're bringing your best again for a completely different subject, because the commonality in it is that it's passionate to you, and you're bringing your A game essentially. Because what can go wrong with having multiple passions and multiple projects is that it can pull so much of your attention away that it makes it difficult to hone in and focus on the one thing that you're doing. So that's kind of a mental game. If you can handle it, go for it. But I highly recommend clear off your desk when you're working on that one thing and give it your all until the well runs out, and then move on to the next thing. That's how my brain works anyway.
Okay, so is this the same advice you would give to a intactivist company as you would as an intactivist individual? Or would you tell an intactivist company, oh no, you should just focus on intactivism? Or no, it's okay for you to focus on different movements as well as an intactivist company?
So from like a business structure standpoint, I would again say, do these other projects have anything to do with your brand? Does it relate to your brand? Does it support your brand? Does it make sense that your Intactivist company is involved in this movement? Is there that commonality that makes it make sense? If it doesn't, and you want your brand to specifically be that one thing, you should stay inside that brand. Now, for example, the branding I was referring to earlier was personal branding. So if your name is your personal branding, you can technically, with underneath that umbrella, be whatever you are as a person, because you are that brand. Whatever you do, you are that brand. However, if you are a company, you've decided to be specifically that entity, and so your brand is then that specific topic and the things that relate to it. So if an Intactivist company were to want to get involved in another thing, I would want to know why. And if it made sense and it connected to what they do, like there would be no questions asked. But you might wonder, well, hang on, why are we focused on this over here instead of? But also that should be like a resources thing. If you're a huge company, that it does not take away from your brand. It doesn't take away from what you're doing. So maybe you're Nike and you heard about some terrible thing, this disaster that happened on the other side of the world, and you decide to make a donation because you can afford to, and it doesn't otherwise jeopardize your company, your bottom line, your brand. If it doesn't compromise it, there's no harm done. However, if you're a smaller company, especially, and your attention is split, and therefore one of the things that you're trying to focus on is not getting enough focus, it's going to be detrimental to its growth and to its success and survival. So it varies. I would definitely say it depends on the company. Who is the company? Is it a human rights company with a focus on intactivism? But because of that major focus on human rights, some other things could easily fall under your umbrella. Or you are specifically circumcision. And for example, are you circumcision on specifically any infants? Is it just about the infants part? Are you circumcision on anyone at all, even adults? Are you against circumcision on just boys? Just girls? So again, it's like if your branding is bodily autonomy, a lot of things can fit under that without breaching your branding. But if your branding is so niche down that it is specifically about Haitian boys under the age of 4, that's what you wanted the donations for, that's what you're asking for the support in, and then your attention goes somewhere else, and the Haitian boys are now no longer getting that support, then you're not really an honest company. You know what I mean? It just depends on like situation to situation. My advice would be, if it doesn't compromise your values or contradict your branding and doesn't ultimately violate or take away from your own profits and the own growth of that specific thing. Does it grow your business or does it take away from your business? Is it the same company, or are you doing an offshoot of something else that needs to be independent? So complicated again, but it depends on the company. It depends on how many minds are involved. It depends on what kind of manpower they have, and really whether or not it's a wise decision for the original company itself as to whether or not it's going to grow it or take away from it. Is your intention to grow your Intactivist company for that cause? Or is your intention to just get out there and now make money doing something else and maybe let the one thing wither away? So it really also would depend on what people wanted. But I'm assuming that most Intactivist companies that have taken the time and the effort to build what they've built, they care about what they're doing and they care about it a lot. So I would say if there's something else that comes along that matters that much to you as well, is there a way you can integrate the two things so that whenever you're working on the one, it's really supporting both? And if not, I would very much caution you from splitting your resources, your attention, your all of that on something else without being sure that it's not going to jeopardize what you're already doing or the potentials there. So that's what I think.
That was our returning guest, Melina's part 1 interview. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Do you think companies can call themselves Intactivist companies when they start mixing movements and values from others? Do you think it adds to the Intactivist movement or take away from it? I'm going to put all of Melina's links down in the description so you can go follow and support her if you want. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss part 2 of Melina's interview and all of our other Intactivist content we release every single week. Please share and like this video to get this out to more people. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Bye.
Prevail over the system. We rise through precision. Uplift transition.